All right, let's get started. Again, welcome everyone to today's webinar hosted by Comstack on the new digital age, embracing technology for appraisal success. I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Ali Bowman, and I'll be moderating our panel today. I'm the Director of Real Estate Intelligence here at Comstack. I'm also joined by my colleague, Devin Shields-Moss. He's the National Director of Business Development on our exchange team here at Comstack, and he's worked here a little more over than 7 years. And I'm also joined by Brandon Gollotti at Bowery Valuation, Managing Director, and Taylor Green, who's a principal at Capright. And I'll let each of them introduce themselves and their experience. We're really happy to be here with them today. Brandon, could you kick us off and let us know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Happy to be here. Thanks, Ali. My name is Brandon Gollotti. I'm the Managing Director of Bowery Valuation for our New York and DC offices. I have my MEI designation. I'm licensed in 19 states. I've been appraising for over 10 years, and I've been with Bowery for over 5. I was the 9th employee at Bowery. We're up to over 140 or more now, so it's been really exciting to see the growth that we've had here at Bowery. And at Bowery, we're a fee shop, so a lot of our clients are lenders. Here I oversee about 35 appraisers, and I'm responsible for bidding, managing client relationships, advising on our technology, reviewing appraisal assignments, and personal management. I think what sort of sets Bowery apart is we build our own software that enables our appraisers to appraise a little more effectively and efficiently, sort of akin to a TurboTax, where it's a web-based platform, and appraisers click through different prompts with third-party integration, APIs, as well as tie into our own database. So it just really enables our appraisers to appraise a little more efficiently and effectively. So thank you.
Amazing. Taylor, would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for putting all this together. I'm very happy to be here. I apologize. I'm having a little bit of difficulty with the Zoom, so I'm dialing in. So I apologize for that. It's not every day that I get to get a little spruced up coming into the office. It's a little disappointing, but my name is Taylor Green. I'm a principal at Capright. I head our Dallas office. I have my MEI designation as well. I've been working in the appraisal field for about 10 years now, all of which have been at Capright. Capright's a third-party valuation and advisory firm. We work primarily for large institutional real estate investors who simply need third-party valuations for financial reporting purposes. We have approximately 40 appraisers, US-based full-time appraisers, at least across 7 different offices in the US. We also have Latin American offices in Mexico, Costa Rica, and Brazil who provide similar services across Latin America. Like I said, I lead the Dallas office for the firm. I work primarily in the major Texas markets and also extend, to various other markets across the Sun Belt. Obviously, we like to think that we've got a much larger footprint than the 40 appraiser headcount might suggest, and so we've come up with a lot of innovative ways to use technology to help those 40 appraisers get a lot of work done in a very efficient and effective manner. That's a little bit about Capright.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Taylor and Brandon, and no worries, Taylor, on the Zoom. I feel like we all have our day where Zoom just chooses us to mess up our day. And today, unfortunately, is your day. Tomorrow, it might be mine. But anyway, I'm excited to get started and to have this conversation with you all today. So let's dig right in. Comstack is a data provider. We cover lease and sales comps, as well as loan maturity data across various CRE sectors. So we're well familiar with how much data there is in the industry, but I want to hear from our panelists with the growing volume of data that is available in the world today. How do you sift through all of that and navigate through it to extract the insights and information that you need for your clients? Yeah. Brandon, well, let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah. And this is a really continuous challenge. There's really just so much data out there, from Comstack to CoStar to public record. And we just have to really sift through it all to make the most sense. But in every case, I would say quality is a lot better than quantity. In many ways, that quantity aspect gives you that 30,000-foot view. However, a lot of times that view, it really should be built into the market knowledge of any sort of senior appraiser. They should have a good feel what vacancy rates are, what market rents are, and some of those general trends. With that being said, it's just like we always try to get the right data, get the most accurate data, and just trying to see what makes the most sense. And we really view each data point that we get as a data point, and it's really a lead to get us to the answer, and just a really step in the overall appraisal process.
Got it. And Taylor, how do you weigh in on this sort of quantity versus quality question when it comes to data in your business?
I certainly agree. I think quality is definitely better than quantity, just speaking generally. The way we approach this, or the way that I think about this, is it's a little bit different when you're on the macro level versus the micro level. When we look at data sources on a macro level, and by that I mean, market data that's presented by, folks like CoStar or Moody's or CBRE economic advisors, it's really important to understand, what's feeding into that data, and that's how we sort of make the determination of, what source of data is maybe more trustworthy or more accurate. It's simple things like understanding, when they're presenting a vacancy rate, is that the direct vacancy rate in the market, or does that also include sublease space in the market? So there's some additional context like that can provide additional insight into any data source on the macro level. When you dig down more into the micro level, that you see, for instance, cap rates is a good example. You might see 4 different cap rates provided from 4 different sources, and they very well could all be correct in the sense that they're correct information, but without the additional context around how the cap rate was calculated, whether it's in place, pro forma, tax adjusted, maybe a stabilized return on cost, that data is largely meaningless, and sometimes actually misleading. When somebody tries to use maybe an in-place unstabilized cap rate to justify a cap rate and appraisal that is supposed to represent a stabilized cap rate, for instance. So to that end, we really rely on our appraisers understanding that context and getting on the phone and talking with actual market participants. I always tell people, I think, a 10-minute conversation with the right market participant could be far more meaningful and impactful, and get us to a much more accurate number on the appraisal than any individual sort of unvetted piece of information on the internet. So that's how we approach, data and trustworthiness, and how to sort through the noise, both on a macro and micro level.
Great. Yeah, Taylor, I think that's a great point that, data points, people define things differently. As a real estate researcher myself, vacancy rate, you're right, can be defined a million different ways by a million different firms and providers. So Devin, I think you might get these kind of questions a lot from, our clients and exchange partners about, our definitions and how do we handle things in meetings. Is there any kind of common answer how you explain our data to people?
Yeah, well, so I think there's a very interesting dichotomy between brokers and appraisers, whereas, a broker is, in many cases, maybe more comfortable with ballpark information and using a variety of different sources, while appraisers are, as you guys well know, are held to a much higher standard in terms of collecting verified information. And so, one of the challenges that I think we have is that, in a space where, we maybe haven't evolved as much as, other industries in terms of technology, what data sources, should you use? Because there's, there are many more than, maybe there were 7 years ago when I started, but how do you kind of, comb through the noise? And, something that I think or something that I see often, or an objection that I face, is that, there's a tremendous amount of people that think, free is not necessarily a good thing. All right. You have a lot of different data sources out there now, too many to name, and they're not necessarily giving great insights, and they cost a fortune. And so you guys obviously are privy to a lot of those different tools, and a lot of those are competitors. And so, trying to, connect with the right people and let them know about our tools and let them know that, yeah, we are free, but we have a very, and I'll get into it in a little bit, but our business model is, what helps us promote data quality. And we are better than, some of these firms that are really promoting data that isn't necessarily verified in a granular way. So.
Great. I forgot to mention at the beginning of this webinar, but if you have any questions for Devin, Brandon, or Taylor, please put them in the Q&A box in the webinar, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end to go through a few of them. So thanks for that. So moving ahead, I think this is a great question. Appraisal is a business. You have many clients, and the more clients you have, the more business that you get. So how do you balance this kind of need for speed and getting through appraisals, meeting clients' deadlines with maintaining, the high standards of accuracy and reliability that appraisals require? Taylor, would you like to kick us off with that one?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, it's somewhat dictated by the client base that we have. So like I mentioned before, a lot of our clients, or most of our clients, are large institutions who are using our valuations for third-party reporting. So there's really no margin for error from our perspective on, the accuracy and the reliability in the sense of delivering reports on time. They have strict reporting deadlines, and they always have, auditors and investors, looking over our shoulder, making sure that all of our T's are crossed and I's are dotted. So we're fortunate in the sense that, we work on longer term engagements a lot of the times. We're working on 3-year engagements, and so we know when these appraisals are upcoming. And so speed is not always an issue for us, but when it is, we really rely on technology. We've developed a variety of different ways to help not only speed up the appraisal process for our appraisers, but also, make things a little bit more accurate in the sense of, building guardrails around things like client requirements, engagement requirements, licensing certifications in our reports. So to the extent that we're, doing things to help the analysis, it's usually, using APIs to pull in data sources or data from a variety of different data sources into a centralized platform, and getting that data, sometimes in raw form, using programming to help digest, sort through, and present that data sort of automatically for our appraisers. And other things like the licensing, certification, things like that. Again, we're using programming to, help organize requirements as it relates to state licensing, USPAP requirements, reporting requirements, and the like, to really help, ensure that there's very little potential for human error in our process.
Got it. Well, so Brandon, how do we kind of balance, speed and quality and cost? Can we have it all, or is something sometimes more important than one of the other factors there?
Yeah, as I think a lot of you may have heard, there's a saying where you only can get 2 of the 3 in terms of speed, quality, and cost. So what we try to do at Bowery is that we really try to produce the highest quality appraisal report. And that also includes communication to our clients. And we always try to over deliver, but sometimes under promise, because we know our clients really rely on us for their deliverables, and sometimes we get in the way, and we don't want to be really a cog in the wheel. We want to sort of help inform our clients as much as possible. So that's the area we tend to focus on, is really quality as well as cost, because unfortunately, to get that quality, you really need to pay sometimes a premium to achieve that. So with that being said, we have a full review staff with dozens of years of commercial real estate appraisal experience with multiple MAIs. Sometimes multiple MAIs are reviewing that report. So it's really important to us to really just make sure that we hold ourselves to a high standard, and that's something our clients really expect. But sort of seeing how technology fits into that as well, really to try to use technology as part of the overall quality piece can sometimes be difficult. One tool that we built internally, in sales comps, for example, when an appraiser is inputting a new sale comp into our database, they have the ability to attach PDFs. They have the ability to take internal notes. They have the ability to see who last used a comp. And all of those small details really give additional context to the appraiser using the comp the next time. If we know one appraiser used the same comp dozens of times, that's probably a good comp to use. It's probably been looked at multiple times, no one said anything, as opposed to one comp that's been used one time, maybe that's a little less reliable. So yeah, there's a lot of factors that play into it, and how do we really try to incorporate technology as much as possible?
That's interesting. The way that you organize comps and kind of attach all the information you have and track like how much it's been used. That sounds kind of familiar to, you know, how we do things, Devin, and that we kind of
Yeah.
track that. And more information, generally, more information, more use generally means better data. You have any comments there?
Yeah, it just in all the years that we've been doing this, it's definitely frustrating. It's obviously you know, quality over quantity, and you know, we could easily you know, collect a lot more users, collect a lot more data if we sacrificed some of the quality, and that would obviously hurt us in a major way, and we wouldn't, you know, we wouldn't be nearly as effective as we are. And so it is kind of going back to our last question. It is really hard to always sift through the noise and all the bad data that you can receive. And so for that reason, we are very careful about who we let onto the platform. You know, if you're not a CRE professional with a brokerage license, or you know, you're not a certified appraiser, you know, we're not going to let you on. And you know, beyond that, we're very careful about the information that that comes through in the way that we analyze it, in the way that we ensure that it's accurate before you know, letting other folks and other users see it. And so it's tough. I mean, we've got I want to say over 3 million comps on our platform today. And, you know, we have a frightening amount that is sitting on the back end that we haven't done anything with because we can't verify it. And so, you know, we really try to hold ourselves to a high standard in terms of that. And so it's a you know, crowdsourcing is a difficult business to be in. But you know, it's just the nature of you know, building out a network like that. You need to be very careful about what you let in.
A frightening amount of data. I'm going to use that phrase someday. All right. So, you know, we've talked a lot about technology and new data sources, including sort of the proprietary technologies that each of your firms use. So how do you approach the integration of traditional appraisal methods, you know, the things that we've always done it this way, this is the way we do it, with more data-driven approaches, and the way that tech can help you get more efficient, get faster, get better? How do you sort of think about the balance there, Brandon?
Yeah, it's sometimes pretty challenging to figure out exactly how to achieve that balance, for sure. For us, we've really focused historically on creating efficiencies for our appraisers using technology. So we built several tools internally and externally that just make the overall appraisal process go as smoothly as possible. One thing that we're really proud of is that we built a due diligence portal that basically enables our appraisers to quickly grab information that's directly uploaded by the property contact. And it goes right into our work file. So those are really the efficiencies that we're trying to gain as much as possible, and trying to figure out how we can use tools. And I know the hot word right now is AI. So like, how can we get AI incorporated into the appraisal process? Can an AI bot review a handwritten rent roll? Those are the questions we're starting to really understand or ask ourselves, and just really try to make sense of what tools are out there so we could just be as efficient as possible.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And Taylor, what do you think is the role of tech, going forward, and how do you think it's going to change how you work over the next few years?
So I mean, I think it will certainly disrupt the appraisal industry. I think it will, at least in the near term, act more as a supplement to the appraisal in the process, as opposed to a replacement for the appraiser, like some AI advocates might suggest. And I hope I'm right, because I'm now betting my career on it. But to the point made earlier, we use it right now to try to build efficiencies and accuracy just within our internal workflows and processes. I think, some of the low-hanging fruit that the technology and AI can help handle is some of the stuff that I mentioned earlier. There's some administrative functions that it can really help out with related to engagement and licensing requirements. I think it also does a really good job of sort of collecting and organizing raw data into something that is easily digested by our appraisal staff and presented well. So I think that's sort of the low-hanging fruit. But when it comes to collecting and verifying and analyzing individual pieces of data, like information on a sale comp or a lease comp, there's really no substitute for sort of the old school appraisal methods of picking up the phone and having a conversation with folks. I think a lot of the times, I think a lot of people say real estate's more of a relationship business than anything else, and so having those right relationships, I think are invaluable and won't be replaced by technology. But like I said, I think the proper use of technology, the way we see it at least, is more of a supplement to help get our appraisers to the quote unquote right answer as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like your comments about, at the very basics, real estate is a relationship business. And Devin, I think that's something that you could comment on, and that our data at its core comes from our relationships with the CRE community, but we're also using the power of tech and tech tools to allow us to produce it and make it better at scale. Did you want to talk a little bit about how we get data and verify it through this kind of balance of relationships and tech?
Sure. Yeah. So relationships are everything for us. It's taken us every bit of 10 years as an exchange team, which is kind of the funnel for bringing in all of our users on the brokerage and appraisal side that are, populating our database with information. It's taken every bit of 10 years to facilitate trusting relationships with the right people that are a good fit for our platform across the country. I started at CompStack in 2016. I think I was the 15th or 16th employee, and I say that only because we were small, and we were in a fair amount of markets, but mostly just the primary ones. Think Chicago, New York, Boston. And we were able to really ramp up our team on exchange so that we could go out boots on the ground and facilitate more relationships and do lunch and learns. And it's not rocket science. It's it's just a little bit of elbow grease. But lunch and learns and conferences and just spreading the word on CompStack. And so, we've been able to do that in cohesion with what I think is really awesome is, just seeing the real estate industry catch up, and the transparency of information has certainly, it's come a long way. Folks seem to be a lot more amenable to using a platform like CompStack, as we kind of carry through this prop tech revolution, than they certainly were, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so, we've been able to, build up a database of users that is about 40,000 deep, which is a solid mixture of appraisers and brokers. And we have a very in-depth process for how we go about reviewing information. And Ali, should I kind of just get into what those specific ways are that kind of set us apart?
Sure, yeah, I think that'd be great and be a great segue to our next question.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, verification for us is everything. Again, it's what separates us, hopefully, from the pack. And so, you know, as a user, if you send us something, it doesn't just go right into the platform and then, you know, spit out credit so that you can unlock what you want. There's a little bit more to it. So I'd say that there's really four different ways, if I had to kind of consolidate, four different ways that we verify information. I'd start with machine learning, which is essentially just our statistical anomaly detection system and machine learning algorithms that help us identify outlier lease and sales data for in-depth review. You know, with every comp on our database received an average of 5 times, which is a lot, right? Across the country, with over 3 million data points, each individual deal is received on average 5 times, and so that gives us a chance to identify discrepancies right away. And every time we receive it, that comp again, it's a chance for our data team as well as you guys. You get you know, the ability to see that number on the platform to feel a little bit better about it. Analyst review is also a huge component. You know, CompStack's team of real estate analysts and data scientists run deep, and so there's a lot of them, and they investigate and correct comp anomalies to ensure further accuracy. And so that's a big part of the process, which, you know, includes cross-checking lease and sales details across multiple submissions, researching the market, and in some cases, reaching out to the brokers and the appraisers is needed to confirm details. So we don't take it lightly. And then community regulation is also a big aspect. So and that's built into the platform. And so as a user, you get to go into our platform and look at different deals and say, okay, this is accurate, but, you know, there's another level of information I could add here. Or, you know what, the starting rent is wrong. We're a crowdsourced platform. Yes, it does happen. And so, you know, what we've done is we've built in this community regulation so that we can correct that information. So you can write in and say, hey, listen, I think the starting rent is XYZ, and we'll take the necessary steps to hopefully confirm that. And, you know, we also, as I've mentioned multiple times already, we've got pre-screened and trusted CRE professionals on our platform. So not just anybody joins. It's brokers, researchers, in-house researchers at appraisal and brokerage companies, and appraisers. And that's it. Everyone else falls on the other side of our platform, the enterprise side, where we're selling all the information in aggregate to lenders, landlords, investors. And then I'll close with our business model. Our business model, I think, is probably the most important way that you know, we've collected the amount of information we have, you know, but, you know, in quality. And, you know, I say that because, you know, the way that our business is structured is, you know, all of the information that we aggregate, again, we're selling it to firms like BlackRock, Blackstone, Morgan Stanley, you know, some of our clients, and, you know, they know, obviously, the rents that they're paying. They know a lot of the information, you know, and they have the ability to fact check us. And so if our information is not accurate, you know, and we are, you know, sitting at the negotiation table, or, you know, we're trying to sell onto a prospective client, you know, it's not going to happen. And so, you know, our you know, largest revenue stream by a lot would quickly dry up if we were to start collecting bad data, you know, and settling. So I think it's really helped us kind of keep ourselves at a higher standard, and just continue to, you know, promote, you know, the highest level data possible, which again, it's not easy because there's so many different sources out there. So
Absolutely. It's definitely not easy, but is important. So Devin largely covered this, how we're handling this, how we're resolving discrepancies, how we're checking, how we're making data better. But on the other side, how are you guys doing it, Brandon and Taylor? How are you taking information from different sources and ultimately deciding this is right, this is wrong? How are you checking multiple data points? Brandon, let's start with you and hear your take.
Yeah, for us, it's really about trying to triangulate all the different data points and pick the what we believe to be the most accurate source. We really treat each point of data as a lead, and we do our best to really try to verify that as much as possible. So a cap rate, for example. So we get a cap rate, we get it from one source, we try to call the broker to try and confirm, okay, well, what is this information based on? Is it the in place? Is it the stabilized cap rate? So these are all really necessary details for us. But at the end of the day, we just really have to try to do the best we can to verify and sort of try to clean out all the sources that we can. And that's really challenging. Particularly in New York, where trying to get people to stay on the line for more than 30 seconds can be quite challenging,
Yeah.
but we get it done. So
That's true. Everyone in-person contact is valuable, but everyone has less and less time.
yeah.
Taylor, do you kind of agree with that sort of general approach, or do you have a different way of thinking about it?
Yeah, I agree with that approach. In terms of which data source may or may not be more reliable, it's really up to, our appraiser's judgment. Obviously, we see some data platforms as more reliable than others. And so we'll use that. I mean, at the end of the day, picking up the phone and having a quick conversation with the broker involved in a deal is sort of the best. We have an internal comp platform that we use internally, where any given comp record that's input into the system, there's sort of a chain of custody, so to speak, where you can see who created the comp. If anybody else has made edits to that comp, that shows up, what they changed, what was there before, what's now there, and in that way you can we've got. And you can also message between different folks using the platform. So if you see a comp in there that maybe has some information that you think may or may not be accurate, you can send a message to another appraiser at a different office in the firm. And because we're a pretty close-knit firm and everybody sort of knows each other, there's a lot of that communication that happens. And so we sort of crowdsource which information is more accurate. Say one person talked to the broker and maybe somebody else got information from some other source. And so they're able to sort of hash out and decide, okay, this is the better of the two pieces of information, and we're going to use that in our platform going forward. And so that's how we try our best to come to a consensus on which source of data and what piece of data is more accurate.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's a lot of research, talking, but ultimately, making a decision that you can trust and you can bring to the client. Okay, so a little bit more in this vein, what kind of data that's required for an appraisal is the hardest to find or verify? And, has that changed over the years, like with, new technology and new data sources? And is there room for improvement for certain kind of data that still remains, very difficult? Taylor, do you have a kind of data that's, most challenging for you or continues to be a little bit frustrating?
Well, I mean, I work primarily in Texas, so it's almost every piece of data is hard to come by, being a non-disclosure state. But I think the hardest and sometimes the most important thing to try to verify is just the context around different information that you see online that's presented as key details on, say for instance, a sale. Like we talked about before, cap rate, context around how a cap rate was calculated, what income was used for the basis of that, was there a tax adjustment, was there any atypical motivation on either the buyer or the seller side. Nowadays it's debt assumptions, and so understanding if there was a debt assumption as part of a sale, what impact did that have on the price that was paid. So I think that's sort of more often than not the most difficult to get because there's a lot of data platforms that just present a number and nothing else. And I think there's sort of a shift in the industry to try to get just more and more data, and it's, you know, leaning more towards what we were saying is probably not the way to go, which is, hey, we've got more data. Whereas from an appraiser's perspective, we'd rather see, you know, better data as opposed to just more, you know, meaningless, you know, largely meaningless from our perspective data on a platform. So yeah, I mean, that's how we go about it. I think from a technology standpoint, you know, I think AI and technology can help assist us in finding and verifying information, even if it's just simply combing the internet, searching for publicly available information, whether that be old marketing brochures, broker contacts, you know, publicly available information on property details, property records, that sort of things. And using technology to get more of that information at our fingertips really helps us turn around and have those meaningful conversations with brokers to get that context on the sales that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, you know, we're currently in a low transaction environment, particularly for sales because of what's happened with interest rates. And we see this with data on our platform. So Brandon asked you, you know, in appraisal, is it hard to, you know, find information or find accurate information in, you know, this kind of environment where there's just not that many trades happening? I can think in particular, you know, appraising an office property, for example, what seemed pretty challenging to me, but what's your take there?
Yeah, for us, we appraise a lot of income producing properties. So cap rate information is vital to us to get the value right, which is what our clients pay us to do. Right now, I would say we're probably appraising maybe 10 to 30% of the appraisals we're doing are transaction related. And really, we try to treat those sort of in contract properties as tomorrow's comp. So how do we try to ingest those comparable information from our subject property while maintaining confidentiality restrictions as much as we can to just make it as easy for our appraisers to reuse that data, but also have the best source of truth so they know everything that went into that cap rate was were some of the expenses that we should really include, like reserves or payroll, not included, and did we have to adjust anything? So these are some of the steps that we try to take to try to just make that process as easy as possible. And that's how we sort of see tech playing that role. Just like, what are some of the steps that we can just create some additional efficiencies, because there's just really so much that you can do, and where is really the highest ROI for what appraiser's doing. So really, like I said, the in-contract properties are really tomorrow's comps, and how we quickly reuse that as much as possible while not making a burden for our appraiser to input more information that's already been inputted. So yeah, that's some of the hardest stuff to find, and how we use tech to make it easier.
Got it.
And
Devin,
Allie,
opinion there?
Yeah, I would just add that obviously from a different perspective, but I think for our team, in terms of the hardest information to find, I think it's always been going after those secondary and tertiary markets or areas within, you know, major markets. And so, you know, and we had a lot of folks that reach out and say, you know, I had someone today, you know, somewhere on the outskirts of Buffalo, you know, and they needed some industrial deal, and we had something, but you know, there's maybe one or two deals, right? And you know, versus you know, the heart of Manhattan, or, you know, downtown Chicago, or some of these other areas where there's so much more going on. And so you know, for us to be able to I think infiltrate some of these really, really small trading communities where there's, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 brokers that are really, you know, doing the deals, and being able to connect those dots, you know, facilitate a relationship enough that, you know, that person wants to join CompStack and start trading their information. It's challenging. And so, you know, I'd say in the last 5 or 6 years, our focus has really been, now that we've kind of cracked the primary markets, if you will, is how do we get into, you know, an Omaha, Nebraska, or how do we get into, no offense to anyone from Omaha, you know, how do we get into some of these areas that are, you know, really, really small in relation to, you know, comparison to the rest of the country. You know, and in many cases, and certainly on the enterprise side of our platform, you know, those are the, you know, the outlier deals that, you know, people really, really need. And so they'll come to CompStack, and that's the one specific thing that they need to have. And so, you know, in some cases, it's, you know, the effectiveness and value of CompStack relies on having that one really, really challenging, you know, deal to get that's, you know, in an area that maybe no one's ever heard of. So I would say for us, location-based recency is also a very difficult thing. You know, everybody wants recent information. You know, we run a campaign now where we're, you know, based on a lot of feedback that we've gotten, you know, if it's not within the last 45 days, it's not recent. And that recency is king. I mean, the market's obviously been crazy. And so people are really, really feeding into recent, and of course, as you guys mentioned, detailed information and really understanding the nuances of what's going on with that transaction. So yeah.
Great. So in the name of efficiency and time, I'm actually going to skip this question because we're coming up against the end of time. I want to make sure we had a little bit of time for questions. And also I am a little biased and I'm interested in the answers that you all have to this question. So how do you see the adoption of tech and appraisal changing, you know, what appraisers will need to do to enter the field? So, you know, coding, I feel like everyone thinks of themselves as, you know, a coder, even if they don't actually know that much. Would that help in the world of appraisal? Like, how much do you see the actual technical skills needed changing, or do you not? Brandon, do you have an opinion there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think appraisers necessarily need to be coders, but I think just understanding computer science generally, like how simple logic works and just how a program could be programmed just to make it as easy as possible. And these are sort of ongoing discussions that we have with our tech team. Obviously, we have such a large base of knowledge that we're trying to offload to other individuals that are building software for us internally. So for us, it's trying to disseminate some of that market knowledge and appraisal theory to those less fluent in appraisals. So one sort of interesting tool that we've used ChatGPT for. So one portion of the sales comparable piece of information that we try to include is adding a narrative block of text, describing the sale comparable using different pieces of information. So how can we use ChatGPT or other text writing software to basically make it easier for appraisers to regurgitate some of that information, but also incorporating neighborhood information, walk score information. So these are various tasks that we're trying to just really understand what further efficiencies we can make for our appraisers.
That makes a lot of sense. Taylor, is your firm using, you know, coding or other tech processes to save time at your firm?
Yes, we definitely are. We've got a group at our firm that's almost solely dedicated to coming up with technological innovation, driving efficiencies through different, you know, processes that we have. I think from a skill set standpoint, I do think it'll, you know, maybe be a little bit more important that future appraisers understand computer science and how computers work and how, you know, algorithms and some of this stuff works. I don't think it'll be sort of like a necessary, like a prerequisite for getting into the field. And I hope, you know, if there is a shift towards more technology, more coding, you know, in terms of skill set, that some of, like I mentioned before, some of what I think is, you know, critical for working in real estate and appraisal is some of the soft skills. ChatGPT and some of these other programs can help pretty significantly with the report writing. And so I hope that, you know, there's not a give and take in this sense, and it's more of just a broadening of the appraisal skill set as opposed to losing some aspects that I think are important and integral for being a successful appraiser.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I know we're thinking about a lot of things here about, yeah, the role of AI, and I know we had a previous webinar of that about, things that can help us with and things that it can't at this point. So moving on, I feel like this might be a little bit of a trick question or have one easy answer, but if you can create greater efficiency in the appraisal process, you can do less time finding data, verifying data, doing the analysis, doing the writing, as you just said, Taylor, using ChatGPT to help you with that. Where could you spend your time and create value, or where would you want to spend your time? Brandon, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a bit of a trick question, but yeah, I think it's really just writing more appraisal reports, selling more. For us, really, client service is such a huge priority for us. So really taking the time to get to know our clients a bit more, what things they're looking for in our appraisals to really better shape our appraisals to them, but also just getting as much feedback on what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. We learn a lot from our mistakes, and like we try to limit them, but at the same time, for us, it's really trying to gather all that feedback in one place, trying to understand where our clients are coming from. So that's where we try to spend a lot of time. I also personally enjoy teaching our younger associates at the firm, just trying to level them up as much as possible, but also advising on tech. Like I mentioned before, there's just I've been appraising for over 10 years. There's just such an immense body of knowledge in my head, as well as all of our senior appraisers at the company. So how do we try to disseminate some of that to our tech team to just make our product even better? So that just requires getting feedback and just trying to have as many of those conversations as possible, and doing that in a very smart, logical way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Taylor, would you agree that being more efficient just allows you to do more and spend more time, cultivating new business, making sure clients feel taken care of? What would be your thought there?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think all of that is important. And I think, you just naturally, greater efficiency, maybe you're able to turn an appraisal in 2 weeks as opposed to 3 weeks in some cases. So yeah, you probably will be able to get through more appraisals total in maybe a given year. But where I'd like to see time spent is building more relationships, time on the phone with brokers, curating, like we've mentioned before, like quality information, as opposed to, maybe just like strictly more appraisal reports. We work with a variety of different clients and some of which, are using our services as part of their due diligence on an acquisition. So if I can provide better services to that client by, talking to more brokers, researching, markets more deeply, that's where I'd like to spend more time than anywhere else, if I'm given more time back by technology.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Devin, any comments here? I'm sure this is part of what
I think that it's always hard to say how much time a tool like CompStack or any of these other tech tools can save you. But I'd say anecdotally, there are a lot of success stories where appraisers, whether Brandon mentioned being able to focus on getting more reports out, or if it's getting more deals done in brokerage, the comp collection, data collection process takes up a massive amount of time, and certainly for appraisers, but for brokers as well. And digging into that, whether it's jumping into a sales meeting and trying to get the information you need and not getting it, which was sort of the impetus for why CompStack even exists today, because our CEO, Michael Mandel, who did data center deals, he was sitting in his Monday morning sales meeting and constantly trying to get the information he needed, and it was never relevant to him. And so he was trading comps and not getting what he needed in return. And so, CompStack was born. Or calling, as you guys have relationships in the industry, your fellow appraisers or brokers, in your office or whatever it might be, you're not getting the information immediately or maybe at all. And so it becomes really, really challenging to put together reports and put together, a deck with the right information in a timely manner. And so, obviously, we continue to get stronger. Comstock, that is. We started out as a small database, but I encourage people to check us out because we have a lot of information, and it does save people. While I can't say how much time, it does save people a lot of time in terms of having to in some cases forego the phone call that they need to make or the sales meeting where they rely on getting that information in return so they can get their job done. And so, I think as the industry becomes more and more transparent and people share more and more information, I think that, this part of the process will just become that much easier.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. We could all use more time. And speaking of time, this is our last slide. So I think an important one to make sure we talk about before we close up. So what extra steps do you need to take or do you not need to take with all of these new tech tools, data, to make sure that you're compliant with the standards that appraisers have to meet? So, in other industries where they're maybe not held to certain regulations, people could be a little bit more free with their use of AI and other tools. But here, I don't think that's the case. So, Brandon, are there any sort of safeguards or rules that your firm is putting in place? And don't share anything that you can't share.
Yeah, of course. Yes, for us, the technology we've built really enables a very standard USPAP compliant, FIREA compliant report each time. That report in our process is reviewed multiple times by at least one MAI designated individual that sort of has been doing this for a while. And we really just try to take the time to make sure it is compliant with the latest and greatest standards. There's a new USPAP out there, which I have to take that class at some point. But yeah, there's a lot out there, and we just really try to stay on top of it as much as possible. With that being said, one thing I find pretty interesting, and that maybe there's a little disconnect from what appraisers produce in terms of a full commercial narrative report or restricted report, and what our client actually wants. Personally, I don't think our clients want to necessarily read a 100+ page report. So I think there are potential changes out there. There definitely will have to be some compliance steps that have to be taken by individuals, but I think there's just a lot of optionality in the future to try to change the way we've historically been doing it, to just make it better, make it more efficient for everyone that's using our appraisals. So
that makes sense. Personally, I love 100-page reports, even 200. It's great. Taylor, are you following similar processes to make sure that you're keeping standards the same at your firm as well?
Yeah, just one note on that. I generally agree. I don't think, at least for our clients, that the 100-page appraisal report is really relevant or even worthwhile to some of our clients at this point. That said, I do know that there's a couple of our clients that still require us to print out the whole thing and send them a physical copy of it. So there might be a few stragglers holding on to the 100-page appraisal report. But in general, as it relates to the USPAP and FIREA compliance and all that, at the end of the day, whether there's technology or not, our appraisals have to be compliant. And so all of our appraisers are trained up and educated to know what should or shouldn't be in a report. And the way we look at technology in this sense is we use it, but it's more of, building guardrails into the process to make sure that we don't by accident, put something that should or shouldn't be in there, or I guess shouldn't be in there. And work with technology in that way. Like I said, we've developed some software and programming that make licensing, certification, all that other good stuff much more efficient than it was in the past. But we certainly want to make sure that everybody's trained up and know, at the end of the day, whatever comes out of the technology is right. And, you can't just rely on technology, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for what's in that report. And If it gets bad enough, you can end up with pretty serious consequences.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense about the balance that you have to maintain there. So we're almost at time, but we have time for one question, which we actually got a couple different times and different variations. And that is about confidentiality, which I'm sure you both deal with a lot. And Devin, we get questions about this. So executed lease information and rent roll information is almost always considered confidential, especially if it comes from a client. How are people working around that, or how do we tell them to handle that if they're giving us that information and so forth? Devin, do you want to weigh in there with sort of that question?
So yeah, we get this one a lot. I'd say confidentiality and accuracy are probably the two biggest things. How do we verify information, and how do we deal with confidentiality and stuff like that? My answer is probably one that surprises most people, which is, if you're not comfortable sharing something, don't share it. And so that's always been our motto, and we stick to it. There are some people that are more comfortable sharing terms of a deal that might be perceived as confidential. But what I'll say about that is, with all of the information that we have in our database, all of this information is stuff that is probably already out there, right, in some way or another. And not to say that makes it right, but whether it's water cooler talk, as I talked about before, trading deals in your Monday morning meeting, email chit chat, whatever it might be. This information is getting out there. And so, what we're really just trying to do is level the playing field. And so, join CompStack, send us your information, and everyone that's actually looking at that information, everyone that is looking at that information, is also sacrificed the same level of data. And so it really is a level playing field. But, at the end of the day, again, we don't want information on our platform that is confidential and is concerning to someone. And so if as a user you feel like you have to hold something back, hold it back. And in some cases, in a workaround, it's sharing a lot of historical information so that you can get some credits, or sharing some comps without all the details disclosed. People are able to find the workaround that way, but certainly understand it as a general concern.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Devin, for explaining that. And thank you so much to Brandon from Bowery Valuation and Taylor from Capright. I learned a lot today. I hope everyone else did as well. Here's a slide sharing our respective contact information. Please reach out, especially Das, if you have any questions about what you saw today. I believe we'll be sharing the recording shortly on our YouTube channel. And thanks to everyone, and happy end of 2023.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.